Welcome to Game Changers with Molly Fletcher, where we take you behind the scenes with peak performers to learn what makes them tick and discover how you can apply their lessons to your life. I'm your host, Molly Fletcher. Today's guest is Auburn men's basketball coach Bruce Pearl. In 6 seasons as head coach at Auburn, Bruce has led the Tigers to 2 SEC championships, back-to-back NCAA tournament berths, and the program's first ever trip to the Final Four. A proven winner, his 25 years of head coaching experience covers 4 stops at Southern Indiana, Wisconsin, Milwaukee, Tennessee, and Auburn. He's guided his teams to the NCAA tournament 19 times and racked up just north of a 72% winning percentage along the way. Despite his success, Bruce still coaches with a chip on his shoulder, and his teams reflect that fighter mentality. On today's episode, we talk about his unlikely journey from student manager at Boston College to big-time college coach, what drives him, and how he consistently gets his teams to outperform expectations. Bruce is a big personality with a great sense of humor, so we're going to dive right in. It's a fun one for sure. Here's my conversation with Auburn men's basketball coach Bruce Pearl. Well, Coach, it's a treat to have you on. Thanks so much for joining me.
Great to be with you today, Molly.
So listen, I want to take it way back, right, to your college days. You know, you walked onto the basketball team at Boston College, and you didn't make it, but you stayed on as a student manager. You know, tell me, how did that experience change your perspective of the game?
Well, yeah, Molly, it was you got to make the most of whatever situation you're in. It sounds cheesy, right? But you know, I wasn't good enough. I had a bad knee. I loved the game. I could play it at one time, but it was way over my head. And but rather than just walking away, putting my head down, my tail between my legs, I asked if there was anything that I could do to be of assistance. And so I started as a manager. But it didn't take me long to move from a manager to the director of student basketball promotions to an assistant director of basketball promotions to a student assistant that basically did everything from hosting Patrick Ewing on his visit to Boston College to helping running Tom Davis's basketball camps to, you know, whatever needed to be done, and trying to make myself valuable, enjoy the process, and as a result of kind of investing in that for no reason other than just I love BC and I love basketball, it wound up turning into a job opportunity for me when Dr. Tom Davis left Boston College and went to Stanford. He took me with him.
Well, and talking about all the things that you did, you filled in as the BC mascot during an NCAA tournament game, didn't you? Dude, I did some homework, man.
Yeah, you know, once a mascot, always a mascot, I guess. There's a great example. My sophomore year, I was actually traveling with the team as a manager. And we're down in, believe it or not, Tuscaloosa, Alabama, 1981, first round of the NCAA tournament. The Eagle gets sick, and he was good. Eddie the Eagle was really, really good. And they did not have a backup. And so Tom Davis said, "Hey, fly the Eagle suit down. I know just the guy that can put it on." And sure enough, without any mascot training at all, I flapped my wings for the weekend in Tuscaloosa. And the rest is history.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. So when did you know coaching was what, you were meant to do?
I didn't know it until I got into it. And I look back at the rest of my life and I realized that it was what God what he would have me do. When I was first of all, when I played, I was always coaching. I was a pretty good player until I got hurt. But I was always, trying to help others compete to win. And I understood I couldn't do it by myself, whether it be football, basketball, baseball, team sports. So I led that way. And then when I was in high school, when I was still playing ball, I would be coaching Little League. I'd be refereeing. I'd be umpiring. I was always involved in that. Keep this in mind. When I went to Boston College, I was a marketing and economics major, school of management. No desire or thought that coaching would be what I would do. None. I just was part of the BC program because I love BC, love basketball. I was going to, go to get a real job until I was a senior and Dr. Tom Davis took the Stanford job and he asked me to go with him. And I didn't work a day for him in 4 years to try to get a job out of it. I just didn't.
Okay. Wow. And it's interesting because you talked about it a little bit, right? Because your career path, to coaching hasn't been linear, right? Which I think a lot of people listening and a lot of people can relate to that. Can you talk a little bit about how your journey, which is zigged and zagged, has influenced the way you show up now as a coach?
Well, I think that in every contest, in every season, it's going to zig and it's going to zag. I mean, there's going to be incredible swings and challenges and things like that. And so my career zigged and zagged. That's just the way the game goes or the way the season goes. And your adversity, it reveals character. And so therefore, I want to be at my best when things are at their worst and adapting to change and making adjustments. And obviously, I've never really done much on my own. The only thing I've ever really accomplished anything or achieved anything was simply by building a team, a coaching staff, a group of players, and that's how I've been able to manage to have some level of success.
Mm-hmm. No question. Surround yourself with great people
and empower them.
Yeah.
And then empower them.
Yeah.
And not just empower them, but trust them and believe in them, and understand that if it's all about getting them to work for you, that's going to limit them. I want them to work for them. I want them to, I want them to try to be great. I want them to be enriched. I want them to do it because it's in their best interest. It very well may be in mine, but if you get people to do it for you, it's not gonna mean anything.
Mm-hmm. It's not sustainable, right?
No, it's not.
So how would you describe your leadership style? And maybe what would your people say, right? Your staff say?
I think the first point to make about leadership, Molly, is that we've created a society where we've sort of convinced anybody and everybody that the only way you can be successful is to lead. And that's just not true. It's so not true. And people that don't have natural leadership skills, they almost feel badly about themselves because that's not in their DNA. Well, guess what? Generals need way more soldiers than they need other generals. And so I got to teach a lot of guys to be great listeners and to be great receivers, because not always will a leader, a coach, a teacher, a general, a parent say it the way you want it to be said. But if their motive and their intention is to bring out the best in you or try to teach or correct or somehow instruct or whatever it is, be a great receiver. You got a chance to receive the message. You don't need to agree with it, but you got to be able to, absorb it and, kind of go from there. You'd have to, I don't know that I've got a management leadership style. I definitely know I don't know it all. My guys know I work really hard. My guys know I really care. I don't think, people don't care how much you know till you know how much I care. I try to demonstrate that by in works, not just talk. And you got to get buy-in. I think you've got to teach. In other words, here's not only what we're going to do to the best of my abilities, but this is why I think we should do it, based on and you've got to almost sell it, and then get them to understand. Look, this very well may not be the best decision, but if we all get on the same page, we can make this shitty decision work. And as opposed to, hey, this is it, my way or the highway, or I have forgotten more than you know, or you know what, and I need your input. I want your input. Okay, but I've got to make a decision at some point. Let's go make this decision work.
Mm-hmm. Coach, you said sell, right? And a lot of people describe you, right, as a sales guy. And you have to sell, I believe, as a coach, right? With recruits, with fans, right? Even to the administration. Tell me a little bit about how that mindset, which has served you well, shows up for you in the way that you do what you do.
Yeah, well, make people part of the process. Make them part of the process. Get their input up front. If selling has a positive inclination or spin, great. Then you call me a salesman. But sometimes, you people will say, well, you're a salesman, and there's something wrong with selling cars or selling insurance or selling on something. No, you know what? You've got to be able to sell a dream. You got to be able to sell a vision.
Mm-hmm,
you got to be able to sell, right? And so that's what it is a lot of times for young people. Look, we're disciplined. We hold our kids accountable. We work hard and work together. But my role is to be able to get them to understand and teach what's the end result. Where we go. This is the way we have a chance to get to where we all want to get to. And so that does need to be taught and sold.
What motivates you?
A huge chip on my shoulder, always being the underdog. There was a time when I was the first kid picked because I was the best athlete, and there was time I wasn't the first kid picked because I got my knees all messed up and I wasn't great anymore and got my legs cut off me. God cut me down a size a little bit. Said, you know what? There's going to be more to you than just your ability to do great in sports, and I had to learn how to do great at other things, and that was that was important for me in my life. Just think, look, taking advantage of God's gifts. Like He's given us whatever we got, right? He's given us whatever we got. I got to maximize them. I got to take advantage of them to the fullest. I want to be the best I can be at whatever it is. As a father, as a husband, as a friend, as a son. You apply it to so many different things in life. It's not just, look, I got to win and lose. I got to win basketball games and keep a job, but that's not my motivation. That's not my only motivation. Motivation is to try to be the best you can with the gifts you have.
On the flip side, let me ask you this. What's your approach to helping your kids, your athletes, maximize their potential?
Well, partly is to get them to recognize their strengths, identify their weaknesses. What are you good at? You can't be great at anything unless you're already good at it. So figure out what you're good at, work on it, and go become great. Figure out what you're not very good at. Don't spend as much time on what you're not very good at because all you're going to do is work really hard at it and become just okay. And so stay away from your weaknesses. Okay, work at it a little bit, identify them, but so put kids in positions to be successful. Don't ask them to do things too soon before they're ready. If they're out there and they're failing, it's your fault. You put them in a bad spot. Now you may not have any other choices. You may not have any other option. That's kind of on you. And then I think be honest with them. Just be honest with them. If you're honest with them and don't promise them too much and develop a trust with them, so many people don't trust anymore because they've been lied to, they've been manipulated, they've been this or that. Hey, listen. Again, be honest with them, and if they could develop trust in you, man, because that's so rare nowadays.
Yeah, for sure.
My gosh, they'll play for you.
Yeah, they'll fight for you. They'll dig for you, no question. Let me ask you this. You recruit a ton of 5-stars, right? But you also get, some that aren't. And, how do you help those guys, right, that aren't your 5-star guys build their confidence and then maybe even sustain it as they get into your program and hopefully continue to develop?
Yeah, we've had way more 3s and 4s than we ever have had 5s. Our program's been built on 3s and 4s that were overlooked. I mean, a couple of years ago, Chuma Okeke was a top 40 high school player. 2 years ago, 60 in the draft. Last year, Isaac Coro, not a McDonald's All-American, a top 40 player. He's going to go in the top 10 in the draft this year. Chip on their shoulder. Again, they need my confidence and belief, obviously in them. The way they're going to build confidence is to prepare, to work hard. You can also overtrain. And sometimes, we're not the hardest working team in the league because the hardest working team in the league is overtraining. They're working too hard. You've got to have a balance there between, rest and being fast and furious in March when it really matters. I think the other thing too is treat the kids fairly. Don't treat them the same. Everybody's not the same. You got to know what buttons to push. Some guys, you can dress them down in front of them teammates, in front of many. Don't. Matt brings out the best of them. Other guys, you say something to them in front of their teammates, done. They've wilted. The leaves have flat out come off the tree, and it's your job to know what they can and can't do.
That takes a lot of energy and a lot of time to do what you just said. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, it does. It does. It does. But that's the investment. That's the great investment. I tell people, Molly, I said, I'll ask you a question, okay? And you don't have to have the answer to this, but I'll ask them a question. So, what's the greatest way you can hurt somebody's feelings? Like, what's one way you can really hurt somebody's feelings? They'll come up with all kinds of different things, being mean or I said, no. The number one way you can hurt somebody's feelings? To ignore them. Ignore them.
Mm-hmm.
Ignore them.
Interesting.
They don't matter.
Yeah.
And so what triggered that, Molly, was when you said time. I only have so much time, and I'm spread thin. But if you ignore your friends, you're not a very good friend. If you ignore God, you're not going to be in a very, very strong relationship with him. If you ignore your wife, she's going to go somewhere else. So you've got to prioritize, and you got to try not to ignore people.
Well, time to me, Tom Izzo was on our podcast, and Tom told me a story that one time he picked up a guy after a bad game. The guy just had a bad game. I think he'd missed sort of the game-winning shot, and he felt awful. And he goes back to his dorm room, and Tom calls him up and says, "Dude, how you doing?" He goes, "Man, coach, I let you down." And he goes, "Meet me in the front of your dorm room in 5 minutes. I'll be there."
Yep.
Picked him up and drove him around campus for an hour and a half. You
Yep.
know what I mean? He spent time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No question.
We'll get right back to the show, but first, I want to invite you to check out my new coaching program, Game Changer Leadership Huddles. It's time to reimagine how you lead, and I'm here to help you on that journey. Join me for our monthly virtual group coaching sessions to recharge your purpose, energy, and mindset. It's a 57-minute commitment once a month, and I promise it will be a total game changer for you. If inspired thinking and group accountability sounds like you, then sign up today. Go to mollyfletcher.com/leadership-huddles to reserve your seat. That's mollyfletcher.com/leadership-huddles. It's time to reimagine how you lead. Check it out. You know, so many of your teams have thrived kind of in that underdog role that you're sort of talking about. Do you view yourself, as an underdog, as a coach?
Yes.
And do you sort of embrace that? But it's amazing. I mean, you're the head coach at Auburn, and you embrace that mentality even with all the success, that you've had.
Yes, absolutely. Hey, don't let success change you.
Sure.
It's not broke, don't fix it. I'm a dog. I'm a mutt. I'm a mutt. I'm not a purebred. I'm not a thoroughbred. I nothing wrong with it, but I'm just not. That's not who I am. There's a lot of different ways of doing it, but you got to be who you are. You got to be yourself and figure it out. Love playing that underdog role.
Yeah.
So
well, it's driven you, hasn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It absolutely has, and you can't let success change you. That's so important.
Sure. Before coming to Auburn, you were away from the game for about 3 years, and then you did some ESPN analyst work, right?
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about how that window of time has helped you now at Auburn, right? Prepare for the role that you're in now.
Yeah, it's funny. I get asked that question a lot. I know there are a lot of color guys that get into it and out of it for a year or two, and then they get back and they say they learned all this. I didn't learn much. I just, I didn't.
Okay.
Sitting there watching it, I don't think I learned that much. What I learned is that I really missed my team. I really missed the guys. I really missed the competition. I really missed the locker room. When I was at ESPN, I was, obviously they call us the talent, and I'm not very talented, so we were the talent. And you're an individual contractor. That's almost what it is, even in your contract. You're an independent individual contractor. Well, I've never done anything as an independent contractor in my life. I've always been a coach or a teacher or a teammate or and so I miss my assistants, and so that's what I learned. I learned that I miss my family. You know what? Actually, in addition to working at ESPN, I also was vice president of a wholesale distributor at the H.T. Hackney Company, and you know what? That was really healthy for me because that was a great company, owned by a wonderful Christian man who was just a super tremendous person and a great leader and a great businessman, and being around him was ethically and his everything he stood for. I learned a lot from him, but that was my family. That was my team then. So that helped me in that transition. So I actually probably learned more from that. Now, listen, I loved ESPN and I really enjoyed working for them. And I really enjoyed bringing college basketball into somebody's living room on TV or on the radio with XM radio. I did enjoy that, but I did miss the whole family team thing.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, it's so funny when you hear about, guys retiring, right? They don't really necessarily miss the game itself per se.
Right.
What I hear is the locker room, the clubhouse. You know what I mean? That's what they miss, which is what you're describing. What's the one thing that you wish you knew earlier in your coaching career, right? That gosh, man, if you could go back in time and man, I wish I knew this, it would have helped me then.
I probably would say balance, in the sense that, like you said, time is an issue, and a little bit more time with your wife, with your kids, with your family, with your parents, just serving so many different masters. And then as I've just gotten older, Molly, I've just, my relationship with God's gotten closer and giving God the glory and trying to the best of our, sinful ability to be, just be better, and that just comes with age and experience. So, but that's the thing I try to give to my players at a younger age, to try to instill that in them. And that's one beautiful thing about being at Auburn. It's a great place, to be able to live that and deliver that message.
Well, and you talk about balance, and I think so many people struggle with that, right? How have you learned to manage that in a way that's healthy?
That's the same thing for everybody. Here's the deal. We go to work all day long, try to take care of our families, to give our families something better than what we had or whatever.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And the ones that we're away from, are our families.
Yeah, totally.
While we're trying, so.
Yeah, for sure. How has your leadership style evolved, would you say, over the years, right? As a leader.
I remember Dr. Tom Davis, who was my great mentor, telling me that when I left to become head coach, he said, listen, if your teams play like our teams have played, that would be a good thing. Because this is what you know. Don't leave unnecessary, beg, borrow, and steal from a million different systems. It's not what you do, it's how you do it. What can you teach? You can teach this. Make this work. And I thought it was great advice. But the second was this. Tom Davis was very different than Bruce Pearl. His personality his makeup was completely different. He said, you don't need to be me. Be you.
Mm-hmm.
Just be you.
Mm-hmm.
That way, you don't have to act a certain way. That way, you know what I'm saying? You don't have
totally.
you know what I mean? Just be authentic. It's funny because I have talked to assistant coaches that have come to work for me that knew me from a distance and lots of different walks of life. People that knew me one way and then they came to work with me and they got to know me. Gosh, you are nothing like I thought you were. And I don't know, Molly, if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Usually once they get to know me, it's for the better. So somehow I must not be doing the right things as far as spinning the persona. But the bottom line is be yourself. And that way you don't have to act.
Amen. Yeah, totally. You spent 6 seasons at Tennessee alongside a woman I've admired immensely, Pat Summitt. And I know you developed an incredible friendship with her, and her son, Tyler, played for you.
Yep.
What's your favorite Pat story or memory? I mean, give it to me.
I got so many of them. I'm gonna give you a couple.
Give me some good ones, man.
I'll give you a couple of them. So, every now and then, Pat would bring you into her office and we would have a how's Bruce doing conversation. Now, she did that to other people too, but it wasn't your casual how are you doing. I mean, she really, really wanted to know with those beautiful, beautiful, deep blue eyes, she could look right through you. Mm-hmm. And if you gave her, the casual little answers, whatever, no. How's the soul?
I'm like, give it to me.
I'm good.
Yeah.
Kids, I'm fine. Your wife, are you happy at Tennessee? Yes. I said, but Pat, here's the deal. We've been here for, a couple of years. We've won championships. I can't tell whether people like me because they like me or it's because they like me because I'm winning. I said, Pat, what if I don't keep winning? She says, Bruce, well, let me put it to you this way. We love you, but we will miss you. And, she made sure you understood, listen, son, this is what we're paid to do. Another, she'd come watch practice and she would, watch and she'd come on the floor sometimes as I'm in practice. She did not too much, but, she'd walk out there a little bit and she'd say, what's this drill that you run right here? And I kind of think like she wants to drill because she's impressed with it.
Right.
I said, what's our 5-man fast break drill? She said, well, let me tell you something. There's nothing fast about this fast break.
Oh, wow.
Holy cow. In other words, she said, your guys are running, but they're not sprinting.
Wow.
I mean, like so cool.
Dang.
And we could talk to each other, that way. And the last thing I'll just say this about Pat Summitt. She created a brand and it was called the Lady Vols. And I don't care. I still love the Tennessee Vols. I love the fan base and love my time there. But why they ever did away with the Lady Vols is beyond me. And there were some, let's just say, writers. Some of them were female. Some of them tried to understand. Somehow they thought that Lady Vol meant you weren't quite up to being a Vol. So therefore, we're going to call you a Lady Vol. Like there was something less.
Wow.
Well, let me tell you something. The Vols weren't half of what the Lady Vols were.
Right, sure.
Okay.
Sure, yeah.
And why I never understood why they just walked away from a brand that Pat Summitt created that led this great respect and honor. And I just remember her when she would be talking to her players, and they would be like, what about this? Hey, look, girl, you signed up for this. You wanted to be a Lady Vol. Being a Lady Vol meant something. So for me, I'm hoping that when it comes to Auburn basketball, being a member of the Auburn basketball team, this is what comes with the territory. This is what we are. This is how we compete. This is how we train. This is how I expect you to behave on and off the floor. And if you can't comply with that, then there needs to be an adjustment. This is who we are.
Mm-hmm.
You either roll with it or you figure out to roll somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. You signed up for it. And I have to add here, right? Because you painted your chest for a women's basketball game.
Yep.
Right? That's awesome.
Yep.
Good stuff. That's good. That's good. Did Pat like that? Was she proud of you for that one?
Yeah, she was. She was. Look, when we are successful, you as an individual will benefit far more than if you as an individual successful, the team fails. It's all about the team. So what we can do to help the team, and supporting Pat, and I had done that at Iowa, supported Vivian Stringer, when she was a coach at Iowa, and a lot of different places. So I love being a part of this Auburn family. I love being part of the team, and I really enjoyed spending some time with you, Molly, and been a fan of yours and the work that you've done, and the difference that you make in people's lives, and teaching and inspiring. And let's do this. Let's do this again sometime.
So let me finish real quick. We end with rapid fire. Can I fire off a couple quick fire questions to you?
Absolutely.
And you just tell me what bubbles up. All right.
Yep.
One word to describe yourself.
Passionate.
One word your guys would use to describe you.
Insane.
A pregame routine.
Being really quiet and talking to God and my grandparents who are with him in heaven.
One thing that annoys you the most.
You know what annoys me the most? I kind of think it's because I really don't get terribly annoyed.
Okay.
The media in our country right now annoys me a great deal. I grew up, I don't mind giving this, but I grew up where you read a newspaper and things would be reported. And if you wanted the opinion, you go to the back page and you read the editorial. Or when you turn on the television set, you watch the news, they'd report the news. And every now and then you get an opinion at the end of it, whatever. Now it's just not that way. I can't figure out what's what. I want to know the truth. Mm-hmm. It's all spun. It's all political. And it makes me sick.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What's one of the most favorite books you've ever read?
First of all, number one, the Bible. First 4, 7. Number 1, number 2, number 3, the Bible. I haven't read a ton of books. I wish I read more. But Rick Pitino wrote a book, Success a Choice. And I thought it was a great book as far as trying to help you, help me, be successful. So Mitch Albom wrote a great book too. That was a great book.
Yeah,
I enjoyed that.
So if you could pick the brain of any coach in any sport, who would it be?
Oh, Bill Belichick.
Okay, and why?
Not even close, by far.
Yeah, just because.
Because well, first of all, I'm a New England Patriots fan. I grew up in Boston, so he's the guy. I remember hearing him one time say, it's not whether you can. Like when he talked about talent, look, it's not whether you can. It's whether you will.
Sure.
It's not whether you can. It's whether you will.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's the best.
He's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, there's some others, but he's number one on my list.
One word to describe Auburn basketball.
Competitive.
There we go.
Relevant.
Yeah. Sure is, man. Thanks to you.
No, thanks to our kids. And thanks to Auburn, yes. Yeah.
So, Coach, the show's called Game Changer. So one last question. What game changer inspires you and why?
Well, I just, Tom Davis was my mentor, and he was, obviously taught me everything I knew about basketball. My dad, I grew up thinking that my dad was the greatest salesman on earth, that he was the most successful man on the planet. And we grew up very middle class. We grew up, I had everything I wanted. But I understood that I needed to make that winter coat last a season or two. But I didn't realize that we didn't live in the biggest house. I didn't realize, but I thought we had everything. And I just grew up thinking my dad was the best. And he was a hard worker and a good man. And I wanted to be like him. And he was my game changer.
Oh, that's awesome. Coach Bruce Pearl, thanks so much for coming on. War Eagle, man.
War Eagle, Molly. At your service. You keep up the good work.
You too. All the best. All right, you be safe.
Thank you.
Thanks, Coach.
Yes.
Take care. Okay, bye-bye. Thanks, as always, for listening to Game Changers with Molly Fletcher. If you like the show, be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts. There you can listen to previous episodes and leave us a review, which helps other people find out about the show. For more about me, visit mollyfletcher.com. Until next time, stay curious and be bold.